one of the things that losing a loved one has helped me understand in my faith is that I now have such hope in Jesus is coming back. When you come to the understanding that our faith is reasonable, it is not an unreasonable faith. That it doesn't, you don't throw away your mind in order to follow Christ. But you love him with everything, including your mind.
Yeah.
Every time you come around a matter and you're hiding the truth, just don't expect a very Jesus outcome, because truth is a person. Me, my first impression of who God is as a little kid was a white Irish priest, and it was Father Smith. I used to desire to see Jesus. Then it happened last year. He's just waving at people and people are worshiping and celebrating. Then nikifika karibu na yeye akatana, kaniangalia. The only way ninge describe, he looked like a younger Gaddafi.
Hey, what's up, wonderful people? Thank you so much for joining us for the DJ Mo's podcast. My crew and I absolutely love you joining us every week, Yani, for the podcast. Now, I have an amazing guest for the podcast for today. But kama kawaida, every so often, sometimes we have kids who come and, you know, they just have a good time as a Kosovo. We have some wonderful fields. And so the kids come and they have their PE session. And so, aupiga makelele, they cheer on because of wamefunga bao or something like that. And we absolutely love it. So I hope that you endure with us through this. Anyways, you won't even get to hear much of the noise, but I'm just giving you a disclaimer. I've seen it before. But then also, we'd like to ask you to go ahead and support us on the podcast, Yani. If you can, go ahead and support us financially, prayerfully, you know, in kind. That would be absolutely awesome, man. Our account details iko hapa. If you can support us through M-Pesa, you know, itakuja kutusaidia sana so we continue doing the work that we are doing. You can also buy our merchandise as well as a way of being able to support us. But in the meantime, man, let's jump into the podcast today with my guest. I'll see you.
In between, kuna ka interlude where she needed to go change to endele. So I was emceeing and, you know, just felt to ask people about wacha tufanye maushuhuda, what God has done. And a lady stood up bana na akasema God amenideliver from lesbianism. Chacha hata ikujua react aje. Yani kulikuwa tu na
Wow.
Naambia watu, yani watu walikuwa like unajua watu walitaka maushuhuda zingine.
Yeah.
Dema akasema God amenitoa kwa. It's the first time nishaisikia publicly. Mtu akisema Mungu amenitoa kwa hizi.
Yeah.
So inakuonyesha tu pia kuna shame fulani yenye imefuata hiyo kitu uniquely.
Yeah.
So nimehave convo na nitakwambia baadaye, lakini nimehave convo na mtu ametoka kwa hiyo space. Na nilikuwa na try kumu-encourage bana, story yako inaweza saidia. There are so many young people out there really confused about this issue.
Yeah.
Now if you can just have a few voices step up and tell their stories. Kuna mdem tu ako huko anafikiria hata hajaona. So tunaambia young people God anaweza kukutoa hapo, but nionyeshe hata msemo mmoja.
Na saizi unajua mimi kumbuka in 2008 nikifanya show na Michelle Kwambo. Niko nafanya yeye crossover. So one time tuliongelelea hii kitu, man. Tukasema what happens bishti yako kuja kuambia maze kuwa ana struggle na same sex attraction, utafanya nini? Na wase walifunguka, man. Wase, of course, inakuwaga, you know, for us from an African perspective, you always come out guns blazing, man. There's no room for understanding, you know, there's no room for kujaribu kusikiza msee. Yasa inakuwaga tu maze, unatoka maze kama ukisema hakuna kitu kama hiyo, man. This is an African. It's not in the African culture. It's something that's Western inaletwa kwetu. And I'm like, for me, I think first that's rubbish. Hii kitu si Western. Hii kitu ni ya binadamu. It's human. You know, we just try to think it's something Western that's been propagated here. But na mimi niko nasema, I don't think church iko prepared kuwa na hizo conversations. Hata saa hizi all over the world. You know, hatutaki kuwa na hizo conversations. Ama hatujui vile tutadili nayo. Na hii kitu nakuja mazee na speed ingine noma. Speed ingine I think the young people are more appreciative. Them, they're more open to accept.
Yeah.
And so the question is, how do we prepare the next gen church to be able to live in a culture where, I don't know if this is controversial, bro, but mecheki wase tunaweza enda church tuseme mazee, we rebuke this, is not going to happen in our life, in our lifetime, but I'm like, bro,
We're already here.
I think it's a little bit too late.
No, there are people, man. I think that God has graced them in this space uniquely.
Yeah.
The guy I'm talking about is called, actually, the name has come back, Sam Albury.
Mm-hmm.
All A-double-L, I think, and then Berry, like eating.
Yeah.
Anglican priest, in the UK. And I remember vile UK ilipitisha, the Anglican Church in the UK ilianza kuordain gay priests.
Yeah.
He aliquit because of it. And
Wow.
and he's same-sex attracted. Okay? He's
Wow.
same-sex attracted.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can see just the level of conviction yenye yako nayo regarding, because I think one of the difficult things most ni ile tension ya, because you also don't want to trivialize what an LGBTQ agenda does to a society.
No.
Okay, so tunalive kwa ile tension between that perfect tension between love na truth. Okay, so that lazima tukue, we have a loving response towards anyone who is in that space. But then also, how do you communicate just truth about God's view of these types of acts. Sam Aubrey writes a book, a small book actually, that I can recommend in it. Why Does God Care Who I Sleep With? I think if I'm quoting,
I'd like to see it. Yeah.
Why God cares who I'm sleeping with? So ina matter nini hapo? So what's a big deal?
Yeah.
It's just a physical thing.
Yeah.
And chemicals ina work vile zina work na tunamaliza.
Yeah.
But when I read scripture, naona God tu ndio anaweza tupatia strength and ability na grace ya kukua in that perfect balance between, you don't want to go like this thing is a normal thing, and by the same time you don't want to go the other side for we are better than these guys because we don't have these struggles like that they have. Because when you read scripture unaona clearly there's different levels as far as consequences are concerned as to different types of sins. Unajua, it is the only sin, that kind of sexual perversion, if I may use that very strong word, that God destroys cities himself. Doesn't send people, doesn't send judgment through other people, does it himself. And so there's something to be said about hati ya God towards this, and I think God anaona how much this destroys a soul and destroys a community and a society. But at the same time, hati ya God for the lost. Hiyo nini kuka hapo katikati, because you can lean one way or the other.
Budai kitu, I mean, tukimaliza hii podcast nitakwambia kwa nini mimi struggle nayo pia. In terms of how to address it. Because this thing it's closer, for me than most people,
No, me I know. Sinajua hiyo story. Sinajua vile imebisha hii.
Hey man, so lazima ni
kuna day have tuko mahali with another couple friend and tukakuwa na hii conversation because it was just around the time somebody who is this preacher from US had made a comment about being invited to a gay wedding na akasema ataenda tu na maua.
Ilikuwa nini?
Is it MacArthur?
John MacArthur. He's very,
So kulikuwa na a lot of conversation going on.
Ni mtoyo his son.
It was his son.
I think ilikuwa ni wedding ya son yake.
No, it was somebody else's, and
that's McAllister.
And then no, it was McAllister.
It
was MacArthur. It was McAllister. I think he's giving a comment about whether that would, that will get into that convo na msupa. The convo ilikuwa ikicome home like that. Ama ni best. Yani tunaenda hii wedu ama hatuendi. Na tulikuwa kwa hiyo meeting tulikuwa split half and half.
Ni noma, man.
Tulikuwa split.
Yeah. I mean,
Zile
ni
ni vitu
noma.
lazima udecide before you come. Like your decision huwezi ngojea udecide siku ile in case it happens.
Lakini buda, hata nikwambie,
Yeah.
ikigonga, it hits different, man.
It's a different, yeah.
It's najua naongea a hypothetical situation, lakini reality ni kitu ingine mazee tofauti, man. You know, but
Anyway.
yeah, but I'll be having these conversations and I can't wait to dive into it. Anyway, but bro, thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
Asante, Mos.
I've looked forward to this to you and I sitting down kwa na podcast.
Yeah. Oh man, asante. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
Asante kwa kahawa pia.
No, karibu. Big shout out to Waine. Mr. Waine na kwa na kahawa ingine poa sana.
Yeah, this guy most thinks believes this is the best kahawa in the country. I cannot tell.
Here.
Mi siwezi jua.
Hands down.
Mi sijuagi good coffee.
Na ulikuwa unafanya job kwa coffee shop?
Nilikuwa in a coffee ministry in Australia. I was serving in a coffee ministry at some point. So I can make good coffee, they say.
Yeah.
But it's because I was told even ndio inamekiwa, but siwezi, hardly can I taste coffee and go like, I don't know. Hii haiko sawa.
I guess you never got into it.
Nah.
Yeah,
mtu wa chai.
So nacheke mimi sasa kabla nikunywe kikombe ya chai yani.
Yeah.
Unless niende mkutano mahali hakuna kahawa, wako na chai. Lakini home maybe mara kama 5 in a year.
It could be a marital status as well.
Hakuna kitu kama
vile pia ulimari mayolos mtu wangu.
Hakuna, lakini kabla
ungekuwa loko wewe, mungepiga chai mba.
Lakini kabla hata mresha ingie in the system.
You already having coffee?
Mimi niko na kunywa kahawa tayari, man.
I don't remember you having lots of coffee, Mos, man. Back in the day?
How
old were you, Mos, when you had your first coffee? You must have been in 20-something, man.
Actually, no.
30s.
In fact, here it's Java that got me hooked onto coffee proper.
And they've been around for, I think, 15 now?
Yeah, this 20 years.
20.
I think they celebrate 25 years, I think. Yeah.
Where?
Java may celebrate 25 years. Because I think the first branch ilikuwa 99, Java Adams.
Yeah.
But for me, nikienda UK when I was just 20 years old. Hiyo ilikuwa introduction yangu ya kahawa. Yeah. But mimi kumbuka, si tuko na kahawa Ocha lakini
yeah.
I only remember my grandmother cooking coffee once. But the smell was so good, man.
My folks come from Thika, Gatanga, and so my grandparents also grew coffee, but we never, in my mother's house, ever. Kahawa yani iwezekana.
Haikupenya for some reason.
So tunakimbianga in the coffee farms, tunakula hizo berries, you know how they are sweet when they become, when they turn red. But my shosho, my kuka never had coffee. Hiyo ni cash crop.
Yeah, but so mimi napenda, I think tangu it was a gradual change. You know, from tea to coffee.
Yeah.
Kangemi coffee haikuwa available sana. Na tukiwa Waroko Banning, so in fact tukiwa Waroko Banning, I think that's where, like, my sister angepika kahawa.
Yeah.
Because najua mimi sikuwa na kitchen.
Yeah.
Tukuwa
na kitchen, ilikuwa hapo kitchen ndio ilikuwa place tumeka madecks.
Madecks na CDs.
All the equipment was in the kitchen there.
Na CDs ni compact discs. Skin important to clarify.
Compact disc.
CD na ni maana tofauti, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but I think
coffee.
Anytime ningeenda Java, I would never order for a tea. Ever.
Shaskia conversation about how wase wana frown upon cigarettes. Christians, for example. But they're addicted to coffee.
Oh, yeah.
Or addicted to tea. I mean, watu wa Central kwanza wako na proper addictions.
Mimi niko hapo hivyo maze, hands up.
Uko na hiyo shida?
Bro.
If we tell you to fast food, wewe una noma.
Sina noma.
Tukikwambia hakuna kahawa mwezi moja,
nitamuona kichwa.
That's a genuine fast.
Nitamuona kichwa, bro.
Yeah.
So, if I don't have 2 cups of coffee at least.
Some have called it the Christian cigarette. Nakwambia church in the West, church ya majuu.
Yeah.
Uwezi plant church bila coffee ministry.
Bila kahawa.
Church haita, wasee wakam Sunday morning, wasee lazima wapige kahawa.
Hiyo ndio kirore ya Kristo.
Hiyo ndio
kasigara ketu, man.
So coffee, nashukuru. Hii ni blend gani wewe unajua?
Hii ni ya Waine. Yeah.
Sawa.
I think it's I don't know kama I think it's a medium roast amekuhook up.
Medium roast. Mimi najua. Wacha nikwambie. It's definitely medium roast.
It's not bitter.
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
Siwezi kuambia.
Oh,
Ni kahawa
man.
tu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But bro, let me say, you're one of my good friends and I've been able to do life together with. I think ni wasi wachache sana wananijua kuliko vile unanijua. I mean, bure tuliko.
Shukran, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
kutoka
it's been hiyo ni tuo
it was 2007. No, 2006.
2007. I think it was 7.
Tukienda Egerton.
Iga ilikuwa 2007 ama 2006?
I think 2006. Tukienda kufanya ile gig ya I think sasa bado ulikuwa Egerton.
No, I just graduated. Nilikuwa tu graduate and then I was feeling this at the time the sense was God was calling me into Christian music and media.
Yeah.
So nilikam Nairobi because uni ilikuwa Egerton, right? So nimekam na ina sijui mtu yoyote. Do you know how I ended up meeting you guys?
No, but I remember the first time I met you.
What happened? Because I remember we met, tulikutana Bata Hilton,
Yes.
Hapo hivyo trip ya now as a K-Kuru now going back to Egerton University for a weekend,
Yeah.
So what happened when I came to Nai, I was looking for a church. And I called a friend of mine who told me about a church that meets at Panari. I'm sure Panari. Mi vile najua Panari bana, hakuna vile kunaweza kuwa na church hapo because back in the day bana ilikuwa this golden building ndio imefunguliwa tu.
It was new, alafu ilikuwa na skating ring.
Nilifika huko bana nikauliza watchman, yani kama nangoja kuambiwa church hapa unafikiria nikauliza ati kuna kanisa hapa ndani. It was Papa Center. Yeah, that's where I first landed. And first day I went there, Julian was going through what the vision of the ministry is, na akasema all these things that they're looking forward to doing, and then he mentioned they want to open up a radio station. So and people were signing up for different ministries, so I went and signed up, and then nikaambiwa come next week, ule msee ako in charge of hii kitu haja come, so nikakam the following week. Naulizia tena naambiwa I think the third fourth time nimekuja hapo nikaambiwa msee bana bado analuzia history ya radio, nikaambiwa fanya hivi, chukua hii namba, call this guy, he's the one who's helping us set it up, and you'll have a chat with him, his name is Njugush. That's how. So kupigia Njugush mara kadhaa hatujapatana. Eventually he tells me, hey, we have a weekend challenge at State House Girls, why don't we meet there? So nikatokea State House Girls tukapatana na Njugush. He explained to me how yes there's that plan, but then things are not, licensed and things like that bado. But he said, but you said ulikuwa Igan. Nikamwambia I just cleared. Said bana, we're going back this coming weekend. We've been invited by Egerton Chapel. I was like, hao ni watu wangu, those are my boys, because I was even in the leadership, for that chapel ministry. Akasema bana tuende hii weekend. Nikamwambia hakuna kitu na do, so
niko busy vile.
So tumeshow up wapi? Bata Hilton. So remember back in the day in some of those missions we'd have K-Crew, ilikuwa inaitwa K-Crew FC. Nakumbuka soccer team.
Of course,
akina Washira soccer team. A few wasanii za kina Tony, emoji nini lakini pia lakini pia wase wa ball wa mtaa. So hao walikuwa wanaenda a day before and then the other artists are going to come the next day. So that's how we met. That's how we met at Bata Hilton. So now I meet Moz. Obviously I'd known about you guys, heard about you guys because kubamba on Hope FM. At the time ilikuwa inachezanga, mi hata nikiwa bado mtaani, I come from Kitale. So nilikuwa mtaani, nilikuwa nasikizanga your mini. No, nilikuwa nasikiza ikiwa Metro. Hope ikuwa amefika huko back in the day. Me I used to remember. You guys on Metro, and Metro now was a little bit more countrywide. So
it was a leading station at that time.
Ndio. So met you guys there. So that's how we met hapo. Tukaongea kidogo. And then you call the soccer guys together and they said ukachange mind yako, wewe Wendy. Ulikuwa Wendy unapeleka hii team. But most talk to these guys. I mean he talked to me and kwa jua hata nimetoka huko gadha wase ukaambia wase huyu anaitwa Andy, yeye ndio atawapeleka, sinda acha mimi nikamkesho, so that's the first time we met bana.
I remember that day bana, because I think the reason why I remember ni kwa sababu ya for us going to Egerton that weekend. I think it was actually my first mission Egerton University. I'd never been to Egerton University before.
It was the first, yes. Okay, cool.
Alafu pia hatuko najafanya job na CU ya Egerton. Mlikuwa mnajiita
Egerton Chapel.
Egerton.
So we had a CU,
Yes.
and then we had Egerton Chapel.
Nyi mlikuwa more liberal.
Si tulikuwa wadada wanavaa trao sasa. Haiwezekani hatukuwa tume. So ilikuwa, campuses ziko interesting in that way.
Yeah.
If you remember JKUAT, unakumbuka JKUAT?
Yeah.
So JKUAT was, because campuses ziko structured, I don't know whether it's still the same, where you have evangelistic teams in the CU.
Yeah.
So you have, Kisumu evangelistic team or Nyanza evangelistic team. Then you have Central evangelistic team, which is a funny thing that we can talk about how discipleship and even outreach and missions happen in our institutions. The funny thing is that it's never, the guys who are there are not focused on reaching people there. Okay.
For the mission is out there.
Mission iko huko nje.
Yeah.
So tuko hapa hivi, and then we form evangelistic teams. Then we go do crusades and outreaches where we came from.
Yeah.
And so ulikuwa naona wase kama maboys wenye tulikuwa nao watu wa JKUAT, akina 501, akina mtu wa Madheka, and akina Alex, kina Mato.
Yeah.
So if you look at, for example, JKUAT in the CU, then wase wako a little bit uptown will be in Nairobi evangelistic team. Whether they've come from Nairobi or not, but hawa ndio wamepewa ile, hawa wanaweza vaa matrao madem na tunawaelewa, okay? But then the other outfits zinabakia very 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 conservative.
Yeah.
But I just thought it's interesting that outreach kuanga ime focus ndani. Like if I remember in campus, we were not really focused on reaching the guy living next to me. How we would do that, if anything, is invite people like K-Crew to come and do something.
Yeah.
And then hopefully the guys who get saved during a concert like that would join us. But we don't do the work.
Yeah.
And it's the same case, I think, with high schools as well. Very little work is going towards equipping the young guy to reach his generation and to start from his school. Even nikikumbuka high school haikuanga hivyo. Huko nafikirianga ilikuwa sisi tuko CU.
Yeah.
Na we are comfortable like that. And man, it would be nice if you join us, but you do your thing.
Yeah.
So this for me imenikujia a bit recently. I met a ministry inaitwa Dare to Share. And Dare to Share's focus is that every teen around the world would hear the message of the gospel clearly via another teen.
Yeah.
Like, so just another teen.
Ulikuwa unapatana zile Bibles za nini pia. Is it not? Bibles za youth, za NIV, like a small Bible that's very youthful.
No, I don't know. Sijui
I want to see. Yeah. Anyway.
So and I found that to be quite unique, just equipping and changing the mindset for the young people to do the work where they are.
Yeah.
I mean, tukiongea about this generation and what it would take to reach this gen. My conviction is that it would take an equipping of the young person to reach the young person.
Yeah.
Properly reach the young person, and especially in
peer-to-peer.
Peer-to-peer. Your peer-to-peer, mimi in my time haikuwa.
Yeah.
Your peer-to-peer, I think, would be the key to reaching this gen, and especially because maze, what do we know? I mean, me, you and I are digital migrants.
Okay? Yeah. It's not our it's not our natural.
Si tumekuja kwa hii kitu, yani we know, we remember the times when we didn't have phones and stuff. Unakumbuka ukipiga simu na kwa booth. As in but our kids are digital natives.
Yes.
And so you're going to need the natives to understand how to reach this digital era. I mean, they understand it, and so I think and how can we equip them to reach this gen? Some of the things that I'm pursuing right now are in that line, just seeing this generation. Anyway, maybe tuna pivot kwa story ingine. And especially in the areas of apologetics now.
And that's something you're passionate about.
Yeah, something that I've recently taken up, and then later on nimekuja kwa mimi niingia story apologetics, obviously based on my own journey in life. Okay, having gone through just a tragic season in my life. If you remember what happened in 2009 when my wife passed away. Okay, my first wife Priscilla. And I mean, hiyo ndio iliniingiza kwa jani ya because now I had questions about God and God's will, and how does God's will work, and how does the enemy work, and why would God allow suffering?
Yeah.
Why do bad things happen to good people? That's me thinking I'm a good person. But as I went through that journey, because initially kuna nafikirianga apologetics ni kitu ya wase very very thumbed, very very intellectual.
Yeah.
We normally have
because
this,
of the people who speak on apologetics.
As in anaongea unaona mazee, me I'm not that intelligent.
Yeah.
Yani you just like apologetics huwa ni kama kuna regular police alafu kuna sasa kikiwa umanaga unaitanga wasewa unaita reki squad, unajua SWAT team sasa, and that's the people in apologetics, but it really isn't. It's one of the things I've had to debunk about apologetics. And apologetics, by the way, comes from the Greek word apologia. It's not about apologizing. It may sound like that, but apologia just means to give a reason or a defense.
Yeah.
Okay. And 1 Peter 3:15-16, Peter anaambia wase a couple of things. He tells the church, set apart Christ as Lord in your life, number one. Okay. And then he goes on to tell them, and always be ready to give an answer for the hope that you have in him. Okay. And do so with gentleness and humility. So, and Peter's not writing to the guys in Oxford and Harvard. He's not writing to the index ones. He's writing to the church. That you would give an answer for the hope that you have. Jude also talks about the same thing. Jude verse 3 anaongea kuhusu, anaambia wase mkue, anaambia wa contend for the faith. Okay. And but those verses assume a couple of things. One is that people are going to ask you about your faith.
Yeah.
And I think in this generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they're a questioning generation. More than perhaps you and I most tulikuwaga bana. Mi nikisoma scripture na nipate kitu sielewi, haiko inanipangua hivyo. Unajua tunafika tu hapo tunakuwa Mungu ni who are we? Unajua mi sielewi hivi.
Njia za God na
njia za Mungu ni hazieleweki.
Yeah.
And that was an enough answer. I get to a verse, I'm like, I'm not sure about that, but hey,
Yeah.
But it's a little bit different for this gen. And part of that, I'm thinking, is they have a higher level of skepticism. Skepticism, not rebellion. I don't think it's really rebellion.
No, they want to know why.
Yeah.
And many times we stumble, our generation. Like, your kid, I don't know if your kids push you as much as my kids do.
Buddha. Hakuna maswali ngumu kama swali ya mtoi. We do this Q&As for, like, in our church when kids are going through, say, baptism classes or new believers. We always slot in a session where they ask any question about their faith and what they're hearing about this Jesus thing.
Yeah.
Maswali utoka hapo mzee. Then nakuuliza, so mbona why does the devil have red skin? Because now you have to take him back to, well, he doesn't really have red skin, which now the question is, but mbona picha zote akona red skin na mkia,
akona pitchfork
na mkia. So hizi ni gani unajua? Watoyo na maswali moja.
Yeah.
Ushaulizwa gani ngumu?
I mean,
an interesting one from your kid.
No, for me it's even actually just their conversations or their understanding about heaven. Like so the other day Baraka namsomea kitabu. And in this book that we're reading, I'm trying to remember the name of the book. It will come to my mind. So the kid is talking about Noah's Ark. Isindio? But in Noah's Ark, it does not acknowledge God anywhere in this story. Isindio?
What do you
So
mean?
so Baraka is like, why aren't these guys talking about God in this story for Noah's Ark? And yet I know it's God who asked Noah to
do this thing.
To build the ark. And I was like, it's funny that he picks up something like that, but then at the same time, it's one of his favorite stories. Or when Deb's mom passed away, That's my wife's. That's my stepmom. No, my mother-in-law. What am I saying?
Mother-in-law. Yeah.
So we're driving, and Zara that time is 4 years old. Alba is 2 years old, and the two of them are having a conversation. And they're like, grandma is in the best place where she would want to be, and she's at peace right now. And you guys, this is a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Alafu unasikia wakiongea and yeah, mommy, I don't think grandma is going to need her phone anymore. So I've never had a conversation with them where they're questioning the ways of God. But for me, what blows my mind away is their simple understanding about who God is.
Yeah.
Place how the challenge is when you ask them to do something and they ask you why.
Why?
Yes. And sometimes it drives you up the wall. Any place, amekuuliza he why? You just want them to do a task.
Yeah.
But why does it have to be me? Why can't you ask Zara? Why can't you ask Alba? I did this thing the last time. I'm like, no, I just want you to do this because I think it's the best place to do this. These are Alba or Baraka doing something else. I just want you to do the task. No, I want to know why it's always me being picked on to do these kind of things. And sometimes it's easy for us to be annoyed. We've never asked our parents why.
Hapana.
No.
Hiyo ni ujeuri.
Hii ni ujeuri bana.
Hiyo ni ufanya vile imesemekana.
Yeah.
They are seeking understanding in a very interesting way. Now, the two ways to look at it and respond. You can unaweza ogopa ugo like no mtoi akiuliza maswali mingi sana. Hata end up my place poor. A couple of some time back, a friend of mine called Dr. John Jaroge, who's been a mentor to me in this space. Together with Celeb, we had the idea of setting up an apologetics, show on one of the Christian stations. And so we had this. We went in, had this meeting, and I remember part of the leadership there going like, "Apana, this is not a good idea." The reason being that if we open up this door where people bring in their doubts, their questions, it undoes someone's faith. Ukifikiria sana, God, we are meant to walk by faith and not by sight. This was the verse being brought into this conversation. But I just remember reminding myself and trying to present this case where one, that God is ni God anaku-invite to love him with all your heart, with all your strength and with all your mind. So if you're having challenges in your mind and in your thinking regarding critical thought, regarding reason, it's not an ungodly thing. In fact, God himself invites us. He says, come, in his, scripture says, come, let us reason together. Anaku-invite, kureason. Na God ajai maswali ngapi Yesu aliulizwa manzi? Even with his disciples, and people trying to just find understanding. And when you come to the understanding that our faith is reasonable, it is not an unreasonable faith. That it doesn't, you don't throw away your mind in order to follow Christ. But you love him with everything, including your mind. And if we go down, I was trying to present this idea that as you come towards, if you're a truth seeker and you're seeking truth in a certain area of your life, whether una come to God or Christianity, or from the side of science, ukona questions that scientific, ukona questions to do with God's morality, all right, like that was a big one for me. Suffering. Now, why would a good God allow for this? And if God is almighty, all powerful, all loving, and he doesn't want us to suffer, then why is suffering present in our lives? Either is no longer, is not all loving, or is not just that powerful as like we think he is. Otherwise angekuwa amesoti kitu. So whichever way you come to you get on a path of seeking truth. At the end of that path, you find a person. You really find a person. And we shouldn't be afraid of opening up spaces where people, young and old, can ask questions about our faith or the faith that they inherited from their parents. Because if you go on a truth journey, at the end of the day, you find a person at the end of it, because
Yeah.
truth is a person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Jesus Christ on a claim of himself was that he is not just, me and you can be truthful.
Yeah.
But Jesus anasema yeye mwenyewe ndio, he's the truth.
Yeah.
Okay, he's the way, the truth and the life. And so na ndio maana unaonanga tukiona maskandal muda kanisani.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something has happened, a leader ameanguka. Whenever we get around any matter,
Mm-hmm.
and we are trying to cover the truth in the name of maze, huyo ni emoji, wacha saizi tufiche
Yeah.
uchi kidogo, unajua. Every time you come around a matter and you're hiding the truth, just don't expect a very Jesus outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Because truth is a person.
Yeah.
Yesu watakuwa involved kwa hiyo vitu sana.
That's so good.
Ya kucover truth. Mimi sema maze, tungekuwa ni sisi tunaandika Bible, tungeficha vitu mob sana.
Hey bro.
Yaani ungekaa hivi useme
story ya David haingekuwa.
Fanya hivi. Mwambia scribe fanya hivi. Fanya hivi bro. Unajua huyu ni Fadhela, huyu ni, unajua, huyu ni king.
Yeah.
Tuseme tu huyo mzee alikufa tu kwa huo. Watu hukufa kwa vita. Tuseme tu alikufa kwa vita. Story nini, because he's anointed man.
Yeah,
you know, so but God yani, look at your Bible man. God it happened. It is true, this thing happened. Hata ndio yani inawekwa kwa record, ndio hili happen.
Yeah.
Jesus is not afraid. And God is not afraid of truth, because he is truth. And whenever truth come, you will find a godly outcome out of it. Unacheki. So young people, they are skeptic. They are not rebellious, I don't think. Okay. Sasa hizi church watu wanafeel watoi maswali tu bana. Maze maswali tu. Mbona iko hivi, ndio vile iko, wewe amini, wacha mambo mengi. But amefika mahali amesoma kitu na imekaa mbele yake. And because of, look, me and you grew up in a time and in a world where there were only maybe 3 sources of information. Information yangu ilikuwa natoka from home. This is what built my worldview most. Nilitoa info yangu nyumbani, home and my community. That's home, church and school. The 3 sources of info. So my worldview is built and founded on that. And these 3 sources of info, they are not contradicting. Kenya iko acceptable mtaani, iko acceptable shule, you know, church pia ina enforce the same thing. So those are my sources of info. They build my worldview. My kids, Gen Zs, Gen Xs, how many sources of info do they have?
Bro.
Information yake tu saizi yenye, say on sexuality.
Man.
Akona a gazillion sources of info.
Yes.
What that has made them become is just somebody who has a higher level of skepticism. Haizi trust information tu inakam that ni true.
They want to find out.
Do you mind? Zidi is now 10 years old. My daughter is 10, right? Zidi anaweza spot billboard yenye kona AI generated. Maze anaispot ya mbali. Tuna Ngong billboard iko huko, ananiambia that's AI.
For you can't tell.
Mimi nafika hapo naangalia hiyo billboard, naona sijaona umse mahali. Umse nimemwona Showmax hata kwa program fulani. Namwambia no, this is not. Ananiambia that's AI.
Wow.
Because
that's
I grew up kwa wali yenye ana need to figure out what's true, what's not. Because there's AI, there's effects, there's Photoshop si tuliti kujia hapa juzi. Yani yeye vitu wana interact nayo, they're always trying to figure out, is somebody trying to sell me something? Is this real? Is this true? Okay. Back in the day ungeonyeshwa video fulani, hili happen. Sasa hizi hata video yenye sijui kama hata hawa wana act. Wasome tupostia kitu hapo online, atujui kaa ni kiki.
Uzi cheki mazee, mtu anaweza chukua hii conversation tuko nayo hapa hivi kuweke words kwa mdomo yako.
Ndio. So because of just the world they live in, man, they have a higher level of skepticism. And you can look at it as a problem when it comes to the issues of faith and Bible truths, or an opportunity. Because here's the thing, once they find what is true, na tumeiona na Gen Z maze, akisha form conviction,
is getting them out of that
about
path.
Kitu. So that's been my passion lately, man. You know, just first of all, giving them the good news that their questions are valid,
Yeah.
and that their questions are welcomed.
Yeah.
Uliza nini hiyo swali uko nayo.
Yeah.
Let me give you a story, nikupatie tu context. Kuna time I think I was with we're doing it was a baptism class for teenagers, maybe 13-year-olds who had finished their baptism classes at church, and then we were doing those opened up a Q&A. It was online. I remember it was during COVID. To open up Q&A for them to just ask questions. It was myself and Luanda, Christian,
yeah.
and then this girl kept asking a question about something, and we respond to it, but she circles back and asks it in another way. So after a while tukaanza kufikiria, sometimes there's a question behind the question. Where is she getting at? Because the question was around LGBTQ issues.
Yeah.
Turns out, finally she just goes like, wait, are you telling me? Excuse me. So finally she comes back to this question again and says, wait guys, are you telling me if I'm a girl and I find another girl, I can tell another girl is pretty, it doesn't mean I'm a lesbian?
Wow.
Namwambia, hapana, that doesn't mean you're a lesbian. This girl, breaks down, and she's like, then anauliza, but so what had happened was, she had made a comment in school and said so and so is so pretty, and these other girls wakaanza kumwambia, kumbe unamlike.
Oh man.
You should tell her you like her, type of thing. So now she's receiving this understanding that, si ati kama wewe ni chalina uchali anakuangame, huyo anawasumbua.
Yeah.
Because that you can recognize it doesn't mean you're same sex attracted necessarily, right? And so she was like, she's been trying to act upon this thing because now her friends were telling her that she is, because she spotted beauty in somebody else. Okay, and now she's finding out that that's not the case, but she's been trying to be it.
Yeah.
And it's because of the information yenye ilikam her way. So mtoi wako ako na access to other kids. Those kids have 100,000 other access your info.
Yeah.
But when you allow them to just come back to us and, this is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
What does our faith have to say about this? Or what do you, even if somebody's not a believer, what does your faith have to say about this? How come God is sending, his people to kill what to me looks like innocent women and children?
Yeah.
In the Old Testament. These are valid questions.
Yeah.
That for me and you tukisomanga then haikuwa iko tu like, hey, okay,
hii ndivyo life ilikuwa saizi,
but sahi tuna need kuwasaidia to give the young people a strong apologetic for their faith.
Yes.
So one, what it does, it really cements their faith, but also gives them a response when they are asked about their faith. So mi na wewe tukua, I don't know about you, but I can't remember the last time I was ridiculed for my faith in my generation. Ulikuwa kama wewe ni msee wa CU, ni msee wa CU, hakuna mtu anakuambia, but then now our kids will grow up in a space where people are like, you really believe in that ancient stuff? How gullible can you be?
Yes.
I've been hanging out with some teens. We're doing this thing called Alpha Youth with them, and responding to the questions and helping them in also respond. What are some of the questions that are coming your way about your faith?
Yeah.
Remember this time one of them alikama akasema they have a history teacher in their school. It's a private school. Na their history teacher is atheist. Na huyu mwalimu ana ridicule wa Kristo sana every time he gets a chance, right? And so he said, so what happened this week? And he said, the history teacher came and just akathrow tu akacrack on how Christians are a bit cuckoo, believing at writings that were written years ago and stuff like that. So I asked him, so we had this conversation about where do you see double standards in that space?
Yeah.
Na akasema, I find it that's interesting coming from a history teacher. You know what I mean? Akashow mwalimu, wewe unatufunza vitu
za kitambo.
You're a history teacher, unakama hapa unatuambia hiki kitu ili happen hukuwa na yetu unatuambia yetu ni bogus because ili happen kitambo. But you're a history teacher, so you see the double standards, okay? So now because wame take a journey of understanding how thinking works and logic and and how our faith is not unreasonable, and the double standard sometimes that people throw at us in our faith. He was able to stand up for his faith, and the rest of guys in the class hata wanaanza kuona yenyewe hapo mbona ya huyu ni ridiculous na hii tutatufunza hapa hivi ya ancient Rome iko sawa, things like that. So it gives them a strong apologetic to give an answer for their faith in their generation, because that's coming. But we can empower them, Maze. We can empower them.
And that's what, I believe that we're in that place where, as truth is being questioned more and more, I think the beauty is it gives truth the opportunity to be able to stand out even more and more. Nowadays, I know people will say that these young people, there's nothing like absolute truth for them.
Yeah.
But bro, truth is truth.
Wanasema truth iko relative.
Yeah, it's
There's
relative.
no absolute truth.
Yeah. There's no, but truth will always stand out for, like you said, for who he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get?
Yeah.
No matter how much we try and question and try and fabricate what, truth will always stand out for who he is.
Yeah. Yeah. Truth is a person. Ni funny that msichana kama kukuambia truth, there's no absolute truth. That statement is an absolute. He's making an absolute statement. He's making
an absolute statement, yeah.
Yes. Lakini anakuambia I exist. Kuna double standards mob sana.
Yeah. Actually, we're going to get into philosophy here.
Philosophy. Dara yangu ya kwanza ya philosophy ilikuwa 2019. I sat in a class. Tumepiga ma sessions kibao maze ya philosophy.
Yeah.
Mimi nashindwa ini. Remember in my class, we were only 2 Africans. There's a South African lady seated in front of me. Kuna day wali have discussion hapo ya philosophy. She just stand, alipenduka tu akaniangalia, ananiuliza, ilikuwa concept here, how do I know that this hand exists? That as mtu alikaa mbele ya moto na anajiuliza, mbele ya fireplace akajiuliza, how do I know if hii mkono ina exist? Ananiangalia zile za wase wazungu bana.
What nonsense is this?
Afrika tunakwambia weka mkono kwa moto uone, itakwambia kai moto. But one of my first questions in that class was, after a couple of sessions kwa daro, mimi niliuliza, tu mkono nikauliza, what is philosophy? Na kukuwa na very good answer. Because nikaona hizi ni nini tuna. Niuliza tu philosophy ni nini? The closest I came is somebody said it's thinking about something very, very hard. So I was like, okay. Jumi nilikuwa naona kuna ma concept hapa sielewi. Zina fly everywhere. But anyway, it's a world we must prepare. Can I tell you something more? Right now, the African church is talking about sending missionaries, back to the West.
Yeah.
And one of the things we're finding is that those missionaries, whether people are going for work, kama vile majobs zinatafutwa kila mahali, there's an opportunity for Africans to one, go and just work in churches, but also even go for work as people are going for work. There's an opportunity there for revitalizing churches, going in there and going like, okay, nimekama hapa job lakini pia mimi ni missionary. But one of the things we're finding is that guys need to really be prepared for that postmodern sort of, post-truth
Bro,
world.
Let me tell you, today, in fact, what you've just mentioned there, we're living in a postmodern society. Where all these things we're talking about, where truth is being questioned, there's no absolute truth. There's no, what do you mean there's only one way? There are many ways to get it. That's the reality of where we're living today. It's funny, in Africa, we can be very sheltered, because of the society that we live in. But as we engage with other cultures, and even where we are today, more and more, the more we get exposure to all these things that we're watching on television or listening to, whether they're podcasts or music and things like that. As we engage more and more with social media, we're living in a very postmodern society. Hapo ndio mahali tuko sahizi.
So na missionaries wetu wako prepped,
bro,
kurichia dunia.
Wewe unacheki, do you think the church is prepared for that? As guys are still trying to live in a modern we're not, bro.
Kuna gap kubwa. And how many kids are we going to be sending? Hata watu tunatuma. Sorry, I keep hitting
it's
this
okay
thing.
Don't worry, man.
Even the kids we're sending, out for uni, and now many, right, who are
Yeah.
going for uni as Christians, who also, every time we have a young person in our church leaving, we go and celebrate nyumbani dedication, pray over them and stuff, but a lot of them are also not prepared to really reach that world, because that's the issues huko zenye bado hazijakoma hapa sana, but tunamtuma huko kwa wolves. And one of the things we must prepare our young people who are leaving is how to reach that generation and reach that world. And there's some things that are haziwezi badilika. As we were doing a missions month last month in our church, right, we had a couple of our missionaries coming back and talking to us about imekuaje huko nje. Now if I had one thing is very clear, prayer, by the way, wacha vile huko utabidi upige ihoya, because it's you just gonna have to rely on God to lead you. So you got to be prepped for the spiritual issues there, but also understanding the narratives, the the lies. How do we reach that world? And we must prepare our young people, whom we were sending out there as missionaries in that space. So but again,
but even here, let me say, man, I love these conversations, Bana. And I think today we're having a much more deeper conversation than many people would actually. One of the deepest conversations I've had on the podcast for a long time, because I guess because of your background in apologetics, but at the same time, even in light of what you're talking about, sending people out there, but then even here, now people are starting to question the Christianity that was brought to us. And we are heading towards a time when guys are saying, this thing is not ours. This thing was brought to us by the Western, people from the Western world, the colonialists, so that they come and take over our resources. So in fact, they're asking us to, the arguments go something like, wametuambia tufunge macho, tuombe, tukifungua macho, mashamba yetu imeishia. They've come with the Bible with one hand, and they have a gun on the other hand so that they can go ahead and oppress us. And slowly by slowly, you're finding that a new trend that's picking up is people are starting to go back to traditional ways. You get where they're like, kwa nini tuliacha mila yetu? What was wrong with our culture? Why is my name John? What was wrong with me being called Kenodia? Kwani Kenodia is not a good name in the first place. So
exactly.
So you can
valid man,
bro. Yeah.
Valid.
So why did we abandon our ways and the way we were worshiping God? What was wrong with our God?
So kuna concept inaitwa, one of there's this thing for is the gospel good news for the African. Unacheki. Inakaa ilikuwa bad news, this stuff. Unacheki.
That's a good question, man. That's so loaded.
It's the gospel good news for the black person. I'm actually looking into this currently.
Bro, when you think about everything that came in the name of the good news, he may oppress.
Ukiangalia, so and you can imagine, of course, slavery. African trade, slavery, colonialism, stuff like that. And the idea is like, jamaa walikuwa apartheid. By the apartheid kwanza, ilikuwa very strongly Lutheran church. The guys who set it up in South Africa.
That was so
very strong.
All these things, the crazy thing is all these things are so heavily embedded with. And sometimes we are afraid or we are shy of talking about these things as Christians because we think itapatia Christ a bad name, but Christ didn't do it. Ni binadamu like you and I.
It's badly practiced Christianity. Watu husema mozi weni mtu anaelewa mziki, so if I give you a piece of music, imeandikwa na nani tuseme? Mozart. Okay. Classical, amazing music, you're a musician, nikupatie, maybe it's a violin piece. And then we play vibaya. Because sijui kona joke play violin. Yako yuko down sana. Nikupatie hiyo piece nikwambie uicheze. And then nikusikize niseme hii music ni trash. Okay, but what does that say about Mozart?
Okay.
imechezwa vibaya, but you're gonna have to examine the music on its own merit.
Yes.
Kusema that hii mziki ni mbaya.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing I think that's being conflicted with hii kitu ya you know,
is the gospel good news for Africa?
I'm being encouraged sana. I'm learning a lot from a ministry called the Jude 3 Project. Run, you know, based off of the US. Now it's a ministry for basically the black people and asking themselves this very same question.
Yeah.
In light of slavery and all the oppression and stuff like that. Jude 3. And again, Jude 3 being that ile verse inaongea about contending for your faith. So they really go through hiyo historicity yote. First of all, obviously there's this idea that Christianity is white, that you have to just go into scripture kidogo unagundua
it's really not.
Europeans are not in that thing.
No.
like hakuna Myuropa hapo ndani ya hiyo Bible.
Yeah.
But unajua ni image yenye iliwekwa pia.
Yeah. The image or the portrait that we have of Jesus.
Yeah, with the long hair and blue eyes and stuff like that. Na unajuanga. My first impression of who God is as a little kid was a white Irish priest anaitwa Father Smith. Father Smith alikuwa mbigi.
Did you like his,
you know?
Did you like his alcohol?
It was I don't
his whiskey most likely.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But he was a big hairy dude.
Yeah.
I can't remember how old I was most, but I used to think he's God.
Oh wow.
Because tu ya zile mapicha nimeonanga za Mungu. Unajua zile mapicha unaonanga hand ya God imetoka kwa heaven.
Yes.
Reach out hivi na ma angels na wote ni walami.
Yeah.
So you have this, you know, preconceived idea that Mungu God is white.
Yeah.
And so I remember once in my life Moses nishaona angels once. Back in 2008. Waliingia kwa room nimelala. It was a bizarre day. Long story short, these three guys walk in, and I remember battling in my mind whether these guys are angels or not because they were black.
I was going to ask you whether they were white or black.
Nakumbuka by the way, best yangu Mato amelala kwa bed next. But mimi nakumbuka nikiangalia hawa sina shindo, but ni weusi kama Mato.
Because Mato is like he's like Nubian black.
He's proper. He's the real melanin. So nakumbuka nikishindwa angels nini, but because in my head angels ni weupe. You know, not understanding that, man, there are all sorts of kingdom of God imejaa rangi zote, man.
Bro, that's a crazy thing.
Yeah.
That you can actually see a black angel and be like, you guys, I'm not sure you've come from God.
Nawajua nyinyi wewe, so mmetoka mtaani nyinyi. I had no wings by the way. That's the other thing. I was like, turns out angels don't have wings. Even I looked at it scripturally. Ni depictions of art. But hawana, wenye wana come in
una debunk vitu.
Human form walikuwa tu wamevaa kama kanzu hivi. Ni kama mtu ametoka Coastal.
Yeah.
Nini tu ya white hivi bas. Simple guys. Interesting. That's my testimony. I don't know whether you believe in angels or not, but I was 2-8.
Can I tell you what I've been challenging my people to do now?
Yeah.
So the other day, we're having a meeting in the office, and there's this skit that we love doing, you know, that, you know, starts with this, you know, God, the creation, like he creates,
I know the skit.
And then he creates man, and then how gradually man walks away from God, and then finally, there's the battle that goes on between, you know, Jesus and all these demons. And so Yesu anakuwaga amevaa kanzu kila time. So mimi wa challenge nimwambia, man, yani nyinyi mnataka kuniambia kuna vile Yesu anaweza ingia hapa hivi na hoodie na lebo.
Hawezi
mngaro tu ya Christ tu ni kanzu Buddha. That's the only thing he can wear. And guys in my office, you know, and these are young guys who are like his Bila, man.
I used to desire to see Jesus, Then it happened last year.
Yeah.
But this one was unlike the angels one. This one was in a dream.
Yeah.
And anyway, long story short, he was dressed in anakaka navy. Alikuwa amevaa nini ya jeshi,
combat.
Just white.
Yeah.
You know, like white navy suit.
Yeah.
And then medals mob sana. It was at the end of time, and you know he'd won the victory.
Yeah.
Final war type of thing. That's a concept that, you know, and so alikuwa amepiga akona ma medals mob sana, you know. So me, I approached, tulikuwa a multitude, right? And so I approached him, I walked towards him, and he's just waving at people, and people are worshiping and celebrating. Then nikifika karibu naye akatan, kaniangalia. And so when I tell that story, I have never told this story in public hivi. So watu wananiambia alikuwa nakaaje, and the only way ninge describe, he looked like a younger Gaddafi. Alikuwa nakaa hivyo, yani ni physically tu, yani alikuwa nakaa Middle Eastern, that's what it looked like. Looked like, unajua vile Gaddafi alikuwa anadunga na mpaka ile ngepa hiyo fatigue suit ya army. Sasa ilikuwa ya white na imejaa medals. But a much younger version of a Gaddafi. That's even ndio you know, so
unajua kuna watu wanaweza kukemea mbaya sana wakisikia vile umesema.
Even hiyo ni mimi imeni happen here. Wanikemea kwa nini?
Bro, because of association. Umesema na kaka nani?
It's because but he was Middle Eastern, sindio, by origin.
And that's like, my point, exactly, you know that.
Ethnicity yenye alikuwa nayo in the human form.
Yeah.
Right, was not European, was Middle Eastern in that, you know, it's Palestine area. Mm-hmm. So I guess it makes sense if he retains that look. You have to be okay with that.
It's the thing that we're saying. It's going to there's a way in our mind that our mind has been framed that Christ can only look in a certain way.
Yeah.
Or God looks like that old man with a beard.
With a long beard.
Yeah, with a long beard. And, you know, they're both Caucasian.
Yeah.
And we're like, first, God is spirit. You get? And Christ is a perfect representation of God in human form.
Yeah.
And I don't think he is Caucasian either. And if he was to appear to us today, I don't think he's going to come in a robe. I'm like, he is.
Netflix umewatch series inaitwa Messiah?
Yes. I loved it, man. And there's no season 2.
Was it? Mazeni mengojaje?
They say they cancelled it, man.
I was just like, this guy in a hood, eh?
They cancelled it, bana.
Kwa nini?
I don't know. And the thing was, it's such a good series.
I watched that thing a couple of years ago. Nilikali, I think, back to back. 3 days I was
Yeah.
Just going like, it's a very interesting.
I was like, it looks so real today, Andy.
Yeah.
That I think for many people, they would freak out to be able to see that, you know, that perspective.
So much with the culture and African stuff. I think a lot of people are surprised, for instance, to just learn that the Christianity in Africa is older than Christianity in Europe.
Yeah.
Okay. When you look at the church in Ethiopia, goes back to the first. I mean, is older than the church in the West. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus mwenyewe, for example. I mean, if you're talking just about the continent, Jesus aliishi Ethiopia, they say what, 6 years? I mean, Egypt.
Yeah.
Egypt when alingeuka refugee.
Yeah.
Okay, his first 6 years of his life, he was already in the continent.
Yeah.
So there is this understanding that ilikuja 1880s hapo, you know, with akina Ludwig Krapf and whatever.
Akina Joseph of Arimathea.
Yeah. Like the Egyptian eunuch,
yes,
who gets baptized and goes back.
The Ethiopian eunuch.
And goes back to Ethiopia.
Is Joseph of Arimathea is the one who helped him with the
cross.
With the cross.
Yeah, he's a black man.
Yeah. And he's from Libya.
Yeah. He's an African.
And his sons as well. They're said to have been the first guys to take the gospel to, is it called Carthage? Very, I mean, bro, that's like...
So, it's ni history ya kustudi.
In the formative years.
And that's the thing, if you just go down seeking truth, you start finding out truth is a beautiful thing. Recently, I'm finding out the church in Congo.
Yes.
Much older than... In fact, hii wave yenye ilikuja ya missionaries, wanasema I think it's a third wave coming into the continent. Christianity, you know, third wave. By the time inakuja na colonialism hapa, ni wave ya 3. But we understand it to be the first, right? So it's something worth looking into. And I think identity, Africa is now at a place where we are asking ourselves who we are. And the African church is coming of age in that sense. But maze mimi, acha nikupe story. Kulikuwa we had a family thing. my extended family. So you know this, ceremonies zenye zina happen, msee amekam gotten a child, children with the lady, but hajai kuja officially, so amekam, but they were very proper African traditional, Kikuyu kind of thing. So it has to be done in that certain way, right? So it's back to the roots. What happens in this case? Ndio tufanye hizi mavitu and then tufanye ratio. Okay, so kuna hii ritual ingine lazima ifanywe ndio tufike hapa. So lots of interesting things were going on that day. Ile mbuzi yenye inatolewa, kondo ilitolewa ya fine. Fine ya umse kutokujanga huku officially. Inanyongwa. Haichinjwa.
Wow.
So this was just an interesting. So anyway, we were having conversations with my relatives at the time, and I remember now speaking to a bunch of I was with the ladies now, the wives of my relatives, because hawawezi kujasaidia tu. Unajua boma imegawanyishwa hivyo.
Yeah.
My dudes are on this other side, but dudes can cross over and stuff. And they were telling me, yes, this is what we need to go back to. And we need to reclaim our identity. And I think there's merit to some of the amazing things we have as Africans, and some of the cultures that we have that we want to hold on to. But no culture, and this one I got from my father-in-law, Mr. Kiari. He once told me something that stuck with me. He says, no culture is static. Hakuna culture inakuanga static. If you're to go back to my Kikuyu culture 100 years from now, who is this to say that 200 years from now, 100 years before that, walikuwa na practice the same things?
Yeah.
Because no culture is static.
Yeah.
Wezi sema wenye wa 400 walikuwa nafanya vitu the same way.
Yeah.
Culture inaendanga iki-change. So we're having this conversation about, wanakiniambia vile inafaa hii, nawambia, so wanasema turushe kila kitu yenye ilikuja na with the mzungu, itushwe yote nje. Namwambia alafu tutarudiaje Nairobi? Because hao ndio walituletea mandae.
Yeah.
So tunarudi tutatembea siku ngapi kurudi?
Yeah.
Okay. Then because we have to acknowledge hii iko sawa.
Yeah.
Hii ilikuja na hii iko sawa. Now, hii ilikam na hii kuwa fiti. Hii haikuwa fiti na hii hapa walikosea. But these are the things, because no one is a custodian of truth and good things.
Yeah.
But those things themselves, but when it comes to worshiping the God of the mountain, which tulikuwa tuna encourage to go back to. Mimi nakumbuka tu nikauliza, okay, sasa, and I was just, look, kauliza ana reside kwa mlima kamuliza na, okay, mimi Kikuyu yangu si fresh. Okay, me I'm born with Luyas and Kales. So my Kikuyu hata accent yake utasikia iko na Kiluya hivi. Kikuyu kingine ni kama, ndakwambia vitu kama Wanyitanga. Wanyita. Nikamuliza, so mimi nauliza see, I'm not trying to belittle them, but it's just, let's track with whether this, okay, is reasonable.
Yeah.
Nikauliza kama God wa mlima ana understand Kiluya. Can I pray to him in Kiswahili and Luya and stuff like that? Na wakaniambia, itakuwa ngumu. Sasa mimi nawashow how then is he the creator of everyone and everything? Kama Mjapanese haezi omba na Kisapere, huyo ni Mungu wake aje? Okay, because and I'm just, with all humility, that God is limited to the mountain area. I don't think can be the God of the universe. Okay, jurisdiction yake ni ndogo sana.
Yeah.
So mimi na in that case niona sasa sijui, because mtoyo wa mine ataongea Kisapere. So atarelate aje na huyu mwamba?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kuna disconnect hapo.
Kuna disconnect tu ya language peke yake.
Language barrier.
Language peke yake. But anyway, so it's a season where we're looking at what it means to be African, what it means to be a disciple of Jesus as an African.
Yeah.
And whether there's a difference between an African Christian and a Christian African.
Yeah.
Because hizo vitu zimeshikiliwa na Bible at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember there's a guy, the chief who came to do those, kuna jamaa anaitwa chief. acha nisimtaje basi. Akona ofisi tao unakuja kumconsult, you know, kufanya hizi vitu. Na anakaa down anatufanyia mafundisho, you know, teachings of the culture, and he opens the Bible, and it's because in the Old Testament it's very easy to connect you know, rituals and sacrifices. So he'll open up a scripture and say, and then Moses performed this, and this thing was, and this animal was killed because of this, and this is why we are doing this even now. So they are saying we don't have a conflict, but then when you read things in their context and you look at the whole scripture and you try and challenge it, unaambiwa sasa umeenda off. But I think the tribes, the tongues, the nations, they are all amazing gifts that God has given us. In the final, you know, in the life to come. Nasema every tribe, every nation, every tongue itakuwa pale mbele ya mwamba. So the idea is not to do away with people's culture, but God comes to take every culture forward. You know, God has always been pulling humanity forward. And so we're not afraid of culture as long as it conforms with truth and the ultimate truth. Sindio? So I think ni jani ya kufanya, and tutakuwa always in transition. So five things nimegundua in life will always be having transitions and moving. These pieces are always moving in life. One is about faith and belief. So you're developing, you're learning, you're changing, you're going deeper, hopefully, in the issues of faith and belief. And that this one, you know, crisscrosses these other four. But faith and belief is one. Identity, and I think as Africans tuko hapo, tunajiuliza who are we? Okay.
And I think the church is also there.
The church, so faith and belief, identity. The third one would be, am I forgetting? Body. Okay. Una go through changes as you just live. And this is the other thing, even with young people. How do I wrestle with the changes that are happening in my body? How do I accept the body that I have and that I find myself in? It's a crazy thing that watoi wanafunzwa ku hate the bodies that they have, you know? And bro, yani, I really feel for those that have this, like, your struggle between the body they have and the mind that they have. And kuna watu wanafeel wako in the wrong bodies, ama they didn't get the best of bodies. And I think we all have some sort of fallen view of the bodies
because
that we have.
Because there's an image that's been portrayed for us.
And you're like, ningependa mandevu kaa hizi uko nazo, but si kupewa. Ona utu tu vitu na utu ni 2 years.
Hizo umezi maintain for a long time.
Nakumbuka tukigrow up wasi wananyoa zile ma Craig David. Craig David zilikuwa zinakuja hivi nasema tu it must be nice. Okay. And then work is another one. I'm forgetting what's the fourth one. So it's faith
and belief.
Identity, body,
work and belief.
Work,
sorry.
I'm forgetting the fifth one right now. It's the other area that you find a transition in relationships. So tuna learn na tuna grow na we'll always be tweaking and learning something, like your relationship with your wife, man. Haujafika, as in, you know, different seasons, you're always discovering, you're always changing, you know, she's changing, you're changing, you're growing, you're learning, you're forgiving, you're apologizing, you know, you're nashing here, you know. So growth in those areas, but the church is in a space now in Africa where she's asking herself, well, do I really have the right stuff? And this stuff nililetewa, is it true? Can I run with it? Is it believable? And what does that say about my identity as an African? And God is not, by the way, bana, when the tongues zilifall on at the Pentecost, tongues, you know, watu walikuwa nasikia languages za kule wametoka. So the African, you know, Jesus alikam for us. Na angekuja, angekama angepitia, na hata angekujia Afrika mzee, angekujia hapa. Kuna wasee wangekuwa wameshindwa kama hii gospel tumewaletea ni yao. What does it mean
The
to
same questions we're asking today.
Wangekuwa hata wanajiuliza.
And they did as well. They did as well.
Sindio?
Because we are assuming that by the time people from the Western world were bringing Christianity to us, so they are not battled with the same things that us guys are battling with today or wrestling with today.
Yeah.
And some of them have never fully accepted.
Na even and by the time mzungu ali wrestle na hiyo kitu ya his own sort of traditional beliefs na faith.
Of course.
Bro, si mimi nimeenda wewe si umeenda. Mimi nimeenda UK 2019.
Yeah.
That was my first Mimi naangalia cathedral hivi. Huge cathedrals, right? Built back in the day. Amazing architecture.
Yeah.
But you can look it up.
Every cathedral that you go to, those old ones.
But naangalia kwa cathedral hapo kuna place unaona kuna ushaiziona?
Yeah, like it's like a dragon.
Dragon.
Yeah.
Kinini sami nashindua. So
it's like what they have fallen angels.
Eventually I asked this guy, one day we were doing a tour and I asked the guy, hizi ni places of worship to Yahweh. Hizi ni nini kwa architecture?
These gothic things.
Akani explainia kuna gargoyles na kuna grotesque. So kuna zenye zimewekwa kwa drainage ya gutters, gutter ya mvua, and then inakam inatoa pipe ya maji. Okay. Ananiambia ile inatoa pipe ya maji inaitwa grotesque. Ile yenye ina pipe ya maji inaitwa gargoyle. So namwambia alafu hizi ni gani? Akaniambia ati zile purpose yake they put there to ward off evil spirits.
And this is in a church. It's in a church building.
It's a Church of England.
Yeah.
Huge cathedrals. Go check them out, man. So even they were wrestling with this kuchanganya. So wako na faith imekam, but wako na vitu twao tenye wana believe. Na wanazimix hapo. Okay. And I would imagine, apostles coming and saying, hizi ni gani? Now, hizi ni gani mnachanganya? And so from the early church,
and for like the reality of where we're living today is we're in a place where our generation are questioning, and that's why we're trying to go back to where we are. We're trying to understand ourselves, and now even more now for the Gen Zs. So they're in a place now where they're really questioning the faith, and in fact for them they're like, there's this thing that you're telling us, but we're observing how you are living na haziambatani. So is this really the truth? Because if it's really the truth, then you guys are supposed to be living it out, but clearly you're not. Are these the aspects of the truth? If they are the aspects of the truth, why are you not holding them up? And so we're confusing them even more. So first, for us who are their parents, we are trying to go back to our cultural, traditional ways. So there's confusion there. Then we brought them to church, and they kind of like believed in this faith. But then when they look at the people who are supposed to be holding it up, they're like, I think we're being played.
Yeah.
I think we're being played.
I think one of the things wanna detest sana is hypocrisy.
Completely.
It seems like to them, afadhali kama useme wewe ni mwizi na ukuwe mwizi.
Yeah.
Lakini ukamna na hii side alafu baadaye anagundua uko hivi.
They can't.
Ako tu like,
It doesn't add up for them.
Authenticity, I think, is becoming one of the greatest tools of evangelism at this point. Is just authenticity. And being and saying and doing what you're saying. It goes without saying in our faith, but unfortunately ni kitu tuna have to say. By the way, tunafaa kuwa people of our word. It's a worst thing in Psalms. It's a psalm of Asaph. Is it Asaph? Yeah, I think Asaph in Psalm 73. I could be butchering this. I'll check it up.
Just paraphrase it.
But it says, who can ascend the holy mountain? Okay. And then goes on to mention the attributes of such a person. Na kuna kavasi hapo ndani inasema, he who keeps his vow. no matter what.
Even when it hurts.
Even when it hurts, right?
Yeah.
Like he who keeps his vow even when it hurts. And maze, yani tu unasema na unafanya hata kama ni,
that's hard.
Inaanza kusound political, but this is scripture. Ukisema unatenga.
Bro.
Na ukisema unafanya.
It's hard though.
It's hard.
It's hard. It's hard to
by
live
God's
up.
grace, man.
I've got to ask you, Andy, you know, one of the things that you said is, I mean, I'm going to go back a bit.
Sure.
So I think you're the one person whom I know, when it comes to relationships, it's like the only girl you've dated, you've married. You know, what I do remember about you and tukiwa nini, about Egerton Ikua, at the very early stages, I think even in that first trip, ulin introduce kwa Priscilla.
Yeah, because she was still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd cleared, but she was still, she was a year behind.
She was a year behind.
Yeah.
And I asked you for how long you've dated, and you've told me like throughout your campus years.
So I was in second year when we met. She alikuwa fresha. So yeah, right from when she was first year. So yeah.
And so tragically, you know, she passed away, and you had your questions, and probably that has probably even shaped the person that you are today.
Absolutely.
How did you? I mean, you're asking these questions about the goodness of God and the pain that you faced. You know, we got the chance to live with you during that period, kidogo. How did you navigate through this, man?
So this is it was the 5th of September 2009. Okay, kikumbuka hiyo wedo, where I married my first you know, like you mentioned, girlfriend and fiance. We dated for 6 years,
Yeah.
and then got married. So that September, that's why it's exactly 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And then just for those who, just to give context, and 3 months later, she had an accident and passed on. We're married for 90 days. Sindio.
Yeah.
So I mean, September usually I huwa ni kitu lazima nitakumbuka sana. Now sharing this 2 weeks ago in at Nairobi Chapel Lavington, just they're going through a series on suffering. And I mentioned there, by the way, and let me mention on this podcast, by the way, when that accident happened on December 4th, 2009, I wasn't able to go back home. Sikurudi hapo, and just huge thanks to you, Mose, and your dear wife Debs. These guys took me in, and I stayed with you guys for, if I remember, it was a month plus, maybe 5 weeks or so, till I could be able to go back. No, till I could be able to visit, the first time to go back and just visit the house. And it's been a long journey, Mose. It's been a tough, long journey, and I'm still, sometimes how the question is asked is how long did it take for you to grieve and maliza and finish grieving? But I understand it. It sometimes is the question that is asked. Once you remarry, grieving as a widow or a widower is interesting, because there is an understanding that once you have remarried, then you have finished. And you're no longer hurting, and hey, somebody else has replaced. That there was love in this. There's a slot in your heart for love, and which was hurt and you were suffering. But then somebody came and filled that slot.
It's like a drawer.
Yeah,
but you had clothes in there. They've gone. Then you have other clothes.
But then that expectation is hardly put on any other grief. Okay, so if you lose a friend, people kind of don't have this expectation that, then you got another friend, and so you must not be, missing that close friend anymore, or hurting because, hey, you had another friend. So it's just a unique space to be at. It's a it's been a long journey, man. One that I'm grateful for, that I had people around me, man. Community. If you've ever been, and some of you know what I'm talking about, if you've ever really gone through a traumatic experience, if you've ever sat in the front row at a funeral, because we attend a lot of funerals, but sio zote unakaanga hapa mbele. When you know how difficult that journey can be, but you also, some of us do know, siko shaikuwa kwa situation yenye uko strengthened na unajua sio wewe na sio because ni maombi yako, that tu kuna wasee wako tasked na burdened with the responsibility to pray and intercede for you. I totally have felt that in my journey, especially those first few. Kuna time nilikuwa yani najua mimi sielewi ni kwa nini I'm not losing my mind. I am hurting, I am hemorrhaging, I'm bleeding. My heart is really broken, but at the same time I can tell kuna ka strength fulani siwezi ka explain, na si kangu kenye nimeifanyia kazi, nimeenda fasting, nimeenda kwa mlima kuomba, but then there are people that are in God's family who, me till today most, I still meet people, strangers, they're not friends, who yani si ati wanakuambia tu I heard about your story and God placed that burden in my heart, and I would wake up in the morning to pray, and a couple of nights the Holy Spirit woke me up to intercede and pray for you. Na watu wa Mungu bana. Okay. One thing that I think makes a whole lot of a difference is just God's people, and the church. So nimekuwa graced in that way, and then in these types of situations and seasons, there are also what I would call providential relationships. God anakuprovidea tu some key relationships in that season that if you pay attention, yani amekusupport na two people come to mind for me, especially in that long season. Albo na Pastor Albo na Janet. So Albo had been a friend and a mentor, and shout out to Albo, ako Detroit, Michigan. And then but every so often God just raises someone to shikilia you through a certain season, and sometimes even mtu mwenye huku ati sana mmeingiana, and that for me was somebody like PJ, just came out of nowhere, and has been very instrumental in helping me walk that journey, sindio. And na community, man, after I finally moved out of the house, because ilikuwa ngumu sana kuishi kwa hiyo nyumba, I moved in with JJ and Tash, we took up a house, and nilikuwa na community, manze. Unacheki ile scripture inasemanga it is not good for a man to be alone. I think it doesn't just haiko confined to marriage. When you're walking alone generally in life, and I know some people would say me I'm an introvert, or me I keep to myself, but it's not about your temperament, but rather relationships, and those are not an option in the kingdom. We don't journey alone because you hautatoboa. There are certain things that are coming your way and my way, that vile nita navigate will really just depend on the relationships I have. And so we are called upon to invest in people, invest in relationships. It gets harder and harder as the older you get, to meet up, to catch up. How are you doing? How are you really doing? And to point to each other's lives. All these letters we have zenye Paul anaandika, we're having a glimpse into a private conversation. That this guy, it's relationships, right? It's his relationship with his community, with the church in Ephesus, in Corinthians. It's his relationship with Timothy. Sindio. And just personal letters about, we're just having a tuna eavesdrop into conversations za msee mwenye ako established in a community and in very meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
So I think those are incredibly important. Na for me zimenisaidia even in seasons where you know grief inakuambush.
Yeah.
Grief kuna time unafikiri, even me I used to think, okay, you know, it's been 7 years, so you know, I think there's a cut off there. From there on it becomes, you know, and then something happens one day and manze, you're even surprised how much you can still grieve.
Yeah.
And it's because death is not natural. I know the Bible says that it's appointed for man, you know, to be born and then to face judgment, but all that is post Eden. Okay. Na kule tunaenda, okay, the future that we're going, that Jesus promises, of course, ni future yenye haina death.
Yeah.
And it's because death had no part to play in our the fallen Adam and Eve. Kuna kitu ili happen genetically that hatutai understand.
Yeah, those altered, yeah.
That because these were creatures that were meant to live eternally. Okay. Because Romans ndio Paul anasema that death ya human beings ilikam, Romans 5 I believe, ilikam through Adam's sin. That's how, you know, I mean, Yesu analia nini? Analia nini akifika kwa tumia Lazarus? Unalia nini na uko about kumwamsha? Unajua uko na nguvu ya kuamsha, but in
fact you know umeenda hapo kufanya.
Sasa but ana grieve nini? Ana grieve because this was not the plan. And death is illegal in God's kingdom in that sense. And we are waiting for the time. What is promised in Revelation is that we're waiting for a time when there will be no more weeping, no more crying, no more death. When we're waiting for the death of death. That's our future. And so I think for those that may go through difficult seasons of grief, you're not a bad Christian if every so often you still deeply grieve. But you paintiwa ni kama, you know, put that behind kabisa, wachana nayo. Mungu it was not meant to be type of thing. So, you know, funika. And we say a lot of interesting things when we're trying to help people grieve. I remember in I think the one mashakaya I made, I was able to attend your time. A good friend alikama kaniambia, mazee Andy, and he meant well, ni vile tumefunzwa kugrieve na watu. And I don't know whether I have said those types of things, but I think being on this other side ni kitu siwezi sema. Liniambia, you know, I hope hauna maswali about this because this is God's will. And how he put it, he said is you know, Priscilla never really belonged to you. You are just a custodian. So you have no right to question, right?
The child was never yours. You're just a custodian.
Yeah, you know, and so but grief bana, grief and also you do a journey and you go forward, and you can grieve well. One of the things inside here, and I did I've done it a couple of times actually before I even started facilitating it, and it was Grief Share, which is a program for people who, you know, Christian 12-week program for guys who want to process loss of a loved one, you know, parent, child, friend. So ni kitu naweza recommend sana. A couple of churches run it. Chapel, I know Nairobi Chapel, Parklands, Bapo pia I think wanna do Grief Share. And I've seen a couple of people from CITAM as well looking into it and trying to see if it's because ni program ya wase kukam ku process grief. Because grief really the challenge inaanzanga after tumezika, and people will be there during hii time ya mashakaya na nini, but you really start the journey when they are lost. Inaanzanga hapo, their absence inaanzanga hapo really, after tumetoka hapo hivyo kwa mchanga. So 10-year mark, I was away, I was studying, and this is just to tell you how bado unaweza grieve deeply sana years later. So nimekaa as in the library somewhere in UK, and then what had happened when tulidu wedo, so mchoraji shout out to Dan Mchoraji, alikuwa ndio amedo videos. Pictures imede, unajua hizo days hii tulikuwa tamaria tuna kakitu man, you know, so it's relationships you're pulling in. And which I find, by the way, you know, I think a lot of people postponed a good marriage because you cannot afford a good wedding, you know, whatever a good wedding is supposed to be. But sisi bana miaka 6 bana, so tulisema wazee hatutangoja ijipe, wacha ile yenye iko. So Mchoraji was doing the videos. Mbiro ndio alikuwa anafanya pictures. You remember Mbiro and Sarah? Mm-hmm. So now back in the day, this is 2009, so nobody has a phone yenye iko na videos. Unajua 2009. So mapicha ndio ziko na ni tu picha tu. I think masimu zilikuwa na mapicha hiyo time.
I think zilikuwa, but like I have one from Nash. That I share of my wife and I kissing.
From Nash? Oh, from Nashville.
And he took it from his phone.
What year hiyo ni mwaka gani?
It's 2008, bro.
Oh, at your wedding you mean?
At our wedding,
yeah. So magadgets haziko hivyo. Siku hizo ndio tumeingia tu polyphonic.
Yes, ndio ilikuwa zinaanza kuingia.
Simu ndio zinaanza kukuwa na polyphonic, you know. Ringtones. Hiyo sasa ni advancement mbaya. So wewe imeisha. And Mchoraji alishindwa kuedit hiyo kitu just because of his proximity. You know, a good friend, and you know, jani yake tu ya grieve ilimshinda, which I totally understand. Hata mimi sijui I mean, so nikamwambia haina mambo, when nirudishie, then I gave it to another friend who, you know, also was in the space and the industry. So I follow up with a friend of mine, good friend man, still till today. So na check in after a couple of months, you know, video kidogo ya wedoni aje. Eventually he just tells me, Mazee Andy, I don't know how to tell you this, but nimepoteza hiyo. Because ilikuwa tapes. Nakumbuka hizo days ilikuwa tule mini tapes, tule una record alafu then utaenda edit. Ndio ikuje na CD. Akaniambia mazee, ni kama wasee wake wakifanya spring clean ya ofisi walizitupa na matapes za kazi zimefanywa. Bro, I have no video for the wedding. Okay? As in sina. So nikaambia Mungu, yani manze, yani ulitaka, yani hata uwezi ni, how can you not, uwezi ungeniangalilia hata hiyo peke yake, you know. So I really grieved the loss of that footage. This is 2010, 2011, 13, grieving kabisa. So 2019 nimekaa library mazee, naangalia WhatsApp inaingia, niyo bro best yangu ananitumia picha
10 years later.
Naangalia hivi, ananiambia bro, nimezipata mtu. So I cannot even explain to you what emotion ili come back. Nakumbuka tu niko laibuni, ninaanza niko tu. So friend of mine ananiangalia, ananiambia bro uko sawa? Namwambia hata sijui story ni muanzishie wapi,
because you go in the pictures, what's happening.
So he just prays, he was there with his wife. They just pray for me. I tell me, let me just go to my room. So just pray with me. Now from the library maybe to the hostel where I was staying was maybe it's a 10-minute walk. Buda between hapo na huko, my guy, nalia natona kilio ingine natoka huku ndani. My guy, I'm trying not to cry because I'm in public, I'm in the streets just walking. Watu wanashindwa nini bana, umrasa, watu wananitokea kwa njia. Buda najaribu kunyamaza, najaribu kujicontain, natoa kilio ingine inatoka huku. Man, I made it, nimefika room, nimeng'ang'ana, nimeingia tu kwa room mazee, buda nililia mpaka nikalala. Niliamka sijui after how many hours. Nimeenda hivi kuosha macho kwa sink, nimejiangalia, nimejihurumia. Mpaka yani, and I just, death is not a part of the equation. And we in the kingdom of God, and the kingdom of God is both now and also not yet. So, you know, for saizi tunaona bat with a veil, tunaona, but tutamuona face to face. So one of the things that losing a loved one has helped me understand in my faith is that I now have such hope in Jesus is coming back. Yani mi nilikuwa tu naishi na siku ile atakam, but because of what death is and what death has done, what death will do, I cannot wait for his return. Okay, and I cannot wait when those who die in him are raised back to life, and I cannot wait for the day that death dies.
Yeah.
Because I now know in my deep parts of my life, the depth of my soul, that death was not a godly, it was not God's creation.
Yeah.
The death of humans. So siongea about bacteria na wanyama na plants. Human beings, we are meant to live forever, and that's our future.
Yeah.
And so I'm really looking forward to that. Sikuanga na hiyo hope in my faith. Sikuanga na hiyo unasoma scripture about how they are looking forward to the blessed hope, and I'm just like, man, hapa ndio inaweza.
Yeah.
Hata ni sawa, lakini for now tuko tu sawa kikamba na kamba tumanze. I cannot wait for death to die.
Yeah.
It's not normal. For lack of a better word, it's not normal.
Yeah, that's so well put that it's not normal. And I ask this because so there's this recent fire that took place in Russia. And bro, my cousin's son was in that fire, bro. And I can't even imagine what they're going through. I
can't even imagine dying like that. It's a horrible way to go. Kuungua mzee.
Man.
It's tough. And some of the questions, of course, that arise from that is why didn't God do something? And where was God when this was happening, And so when you lose a loved one like that, you have those questions more than you. And God's will.
Yeah.
So mi nakumbuka, I mean, nime wrestle na hiyo issue ya, so exactly what happened that day, 2009, December 4th, what really happened? Okay, so was this God's will? Because, nimeambiwa that ukikuja wasi wakikam ku grieve na wewe wanakuambia, it's an acceptance of, just accept this was God's will. Firstly, I don't think mai kahawa inanipea ile kahawa po inafanya ubelch. Niko na mabelches. So firstly, not everything that happens down here is God's will. And this one I had to, we pray, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's because kuna vitu zina happen up and down zenye sio God's will. Most tuwezi enda kucheki dema amerepiwa akienda home na tuende kumwambia mazee pole sana, hii ilikuwa will ya God. Hakuna vile ilikuwa will ya God. Okay. The definite thing, kuna vitu yenye definitely is not God's will. If somebody is murdered, cannot be God's will, because God amesema do not murder. So anyway, so is it God's will? Nakumbuka nikijiuliza, is this the devil? Because your John 10:10, the thief comes to steal, kill and destroy. So I'm looking at this death and I'm going like, someone has been stolen from me, from us, those who loved her and knew her. So we are feeling that, and death has happened here. There's a destruction of a future here, and So is it God? Is it the devil? Is it human choices here? Okay. Is it the driver who should have been careful, driving down a busy road at the zebra crossing and didn't slow down and ended up hitting her? Is it mimi sikuwa prayerful enough to cover my wife in prayer? Okay. Was I in the wrong? So you're having all these things, and sometimes we're able to land it in terms of figuring out okay, whether is this human consequences? Is this evil? Is this, did God? And I don't know whether sometimes we can find a clear answer there.
Yeah.
Okay. What we know for sure, though, I may not know whether this was God's will, but I know that God allowed it.
Yeah.
Could he have done something about it? I mean, angeweza. But he allowed it, regardless, right?
Yeah.
He allowed it. So not everything that happens is God's will. Some is ni topic kubwa. But then what I know, though, Moses, in everything that happens to me, there's the way that God wills I respond. Okay? Not everything that happens to me may necessarily be God's will, but there is the way that God wills for me to respond.
Yeah.
So hizo ndo vitu tuwezi control vitu zote zinatukujia. Najua kuna churches zitakuambia, you know, it was within your control, and you know, ukirebuke na zote unafaa kuwa unaishi maisha deadly hapa. Unafaa kuwa kuna pesa zote unataka, and this is the formula to get it, and this is the formula to have the life, you know. It is interesting because talk to the disciples.
We need to have this
ukiangalia
vile vitu walikipitia.
Unanitu kuangalia historia ya mwenye hata ya ule mwenye alileta hiyo, unasema hivyo na Mungu Yesu mwenye hata ana nyumba. But anyway, so there's a way that God wills me to respond. So that's the only thing most that you and I have control over.
Yeah.
So walk on the God side of your journey.
Yeah.
Whatever has happened to you, there's a way to respond in a godly way. And there is a way unaweza enda na hiyo haikuwa will ya Mungu. It's not God's will, for instance, that unajua because of Kenya ili happen niseme Mungu nilitry it your way mpaka nikangoja. Sasa wacha hii town watanitambua. Sasa nakafungulia. You know, and you can because of pain you can go into substance abuse, man. You can go into promiscuity. It's a bottomless pit. But you have you have a will to respond in a godly way. So, you know, the ancient fathers, I think, who I'm trying to remember, he says, if you must suffer well. Okay, so there's a way to suffer well, and there's a way that unaweza suffer na ikue definitely tukuambia haikuwa will ya Mungu mazee urespond hivyo na uende hiyo direction. And then keep talking to God, man. Whatever those difficult conversations may look like. Job, at the end of the book of Job God ako pleased na Job, and ako very displeased with his friends. For maybe for different reasons, but one of them is Job never stopped talking to God. In that situation. Hao mabeshte yake, by the way, hakuna uoni hata si watu waihoya. Wao wanaongelesha Job nini. God is really pleased with this guy because he never stopped talking to God about it, even if it's in the lamentations, even if it's in the why God, why me, you know, and even if they are having hard conversations when God comes back in the latter chapters na anamtandika nyahunyo, ulikuwa wapi nikifanya hii, niki up foundations, ulikuwa wapi? But it's still prayer. Okay. Job never stops praying, never stops questioning, asking, repenting when he gets there. So we keep talking and journeying with God in that. So I think prayer, and then community, manze. Community important sana most. Isolation is a worse enemy.
Man.
Yo.
Nashow pale hivyo na madam producer na tushow mazee.
Anakuambia magedha.
Anatuambia magedha. Oh my gosh.
Ni 130. Mwende mtupe footage ni mingi sana, mtupe na huko. Tumerecord the session kai ine.
Yani, let me tell you, bro, this is so good. And you know, we've discussed about so much stuff, like
Did we even talk about what the modern producer wanted us to tukianza alisema tuseme tuende wapi?
Hata zuri za mziki hatuchagusia hata kidogo. But I think that there's such great conversations tumekuwa nazo hapa hivi, and and I hope that our viewers or guys who are listening to us, that at whatever point you've listened to this podcast, it's made you think a little bit more. And I didn't even want to rush it. Like, I didn't want to rush your train of thought.
Good luck to the editor.
Yeah, I mean, no, we just put it raw. We don't edit anything.
Oh, no?
No, bro, it's vileiko tu.
Hakuna kuchop.
We don't chop it, man. Just as it is. But there's a lot, and we need to have more conversations about apologetics. And I think one of the big things as well that we're talking about is, as we go through an identity crisis, whether it's as Africans or the church in Africa, we need to have this conversation so we know how to be able to respond for such a time as this. Because I think how we respond now, bro, it directly impacts the next generation. We can't bury our heads in the sand. Questions are being asked. Life is happening. So we need to respond and adjust and adapt. Teke kwa sababu hakuna time ya kuwaste. We don't have that luxury of time. And the world now is moving at a much faster rate. Information is coming in even ridiculously faster. Uncle Google sasa hata mazee si uncle yani siku hizi ukiingia mazee kwa mtandao ChatGPT and ask for anything, most likely you'll get a response. But we need to be able to be well prepared for how to respond at such a time like this, bro. Thank you so much, man.
Karibu, asante. God anadugu kitu yake, I think. Whenever we talk about this generation, we talk to parents. My wife is a next gen pastor, you know this. So when we have sessions with parents, you can sense the apprehension, the fear, what will happen to this gen. Lakini, most let me encourage us to remember, there's a lady called Lisa Park, Madam Producer, as we finish, and from ministry called Finishing the Task. It's Rick Warren's sort of, one of Rick Warren's ministry. And she said something that stuck with me one day. Alisema, and I hope I quote it right, alisema, I think with reference to Since the Cross, that God has never lost a generation since then, and is not about to start. And so there's, hiyo inanipea hope sana. Even when I, because you can parent from a place of fear, you can disciple from a place of fear. Some saa zingine ile tu ya wana. But ajai lose na, and I think he's showing us how to do it, and just directing us in different ways, raising different people to do what needs to be done. And so, may we be faithful.
May we be faithful, man.
Sindio. Yeah.
And I think it's up to us, those of us who God has allowed us to be in spaces where we can be able to speak life, to speak into those spaces. Whether we encourage parents to navigate through these spaces, to encourage them to kiwaambia mazee, it's all not lost, You do what you need to do, right? Model this thing, But bro, it's been good, man. Asante sana for these conversations.
Meshukuru sana.
Karibu.
It's good to be here. Na asante kwa kahawa.
No, karibu sana, man. Hiyo kahawa ni yako, madam, man. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for the conversations. I was hanging out today with Andy Mburu. Great guy. Enda tupatile ngoma kali inaitwa Ananijali. And there's a story behind that song as well. And a lot more that we didn't even get to discuss about today. But because tumembo tumalize, this is tunakuangusha hii, man. Someone has to take the blame, throwing you under the bus. But guys, thank you so much. I hope the conversations have been enriching for you, encouraging as well, and challenging. Pia, for me, it's been challenging as well. So do go ahead and write to us, comment below. Let us know what you thought about the podcast today. Again, if you want to reach out to Andy, his socials, will put them out there, man. If you have any questions about apologetics, he's right here. He's been able to, he loves it. And hopefully I'll be able to have some more conversations with him sometime later about apologetics and how we can be able best be prepared to respond to the questions that are coming our way. But for now, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We absolutely love you, man. Go ahead and like, subscribe, share together with your friends and your loved ones. You can also support us as well. You can get our merchandise. I was given this new one. Ulizita nini hizi?
Bomber jacket.
Ndio hizo sasa, man. Bomber jackets. Kali sana, man. Ziko na ka African print hapo hivyo. So go ahead and order for it. It's actually quite warm. So for the evenings, man.
Onyeshe hoodie.
Ati?
Kuna
Haina
hoodie?
hii ina hoodie.
Haina hoodie, hisi hoodie naona.
Hisi hoodie, bro.
All right. Safi.
Yeah, man, ungekuwa pasta kwa hoodie na kama eko, lakini for now. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Peace. We love you. And yeah, niko nasema kuhusu merchandise. You can go ahead and order for the merchandise. And, our wonderful producer, she'll be able to hook you up with the merchandise that you need. Thank you. We love you. Peace. And we're out.